Close your eyes for a second and picture two apartments. Same city, same block actually. The rent difference between them is maybe $40 a month. The first apartment belongs to someone pulling in $97,000 a year. You walk through the front door and the first thing you notice is the television. Massive, nearly the width of the wall. Probably costs more than most people's first car. There's a leather sectional dominating the living room, the kind you sink into and struggle to get out of. The kitchen counter is lined with gadgets, an air fryer, a sous vide machine, a juicer still wearing its plastic wrap. The closet is a graveyard of good intentions, blazers for events that never happened, shoes for a version of this person that doesn't quite exist yet. The second bedroom, it's storage now. Boxes stacked on boxes, a treadmill buried under winter coats, furniture that never made it to the main rooms. This person earns almost 6 figures, and they check their bank account the way most people check the weather during hurricane season, dreading what they're going to find. The second apartment belongs to someone earning $54,000 a year. You walk in and the first thing you notice is how it feels. There's room to breathe, a couch that fits the space instead of fighting it, a television that's a reasonable size for the room, a kitchen where every appliance on the counter actually gets used, a closet where you can see everything because everything in it belongs there. The second bedroom is a bedroom. A guest can actually sleep in it. This person checks their bank account the way you check a savings jar you've been filling for months, with quiet satisfaction. They have over a year and a half of living expenses saved. They invest a fifth of every paycheck before they even think about spending the rest. Now here's the part that should stop you cold. The person earning nearly twice as much is financially fragile. The person earning the lower salary is financially free. Same neighborhood, completely different financial realities, and the difference has almost nothing to do with income. This isn't a feel-good story about frugality. It's a story about a relationship between what you own and what you're worth. A relationship most people never examine and almost nobody talks about honestly. Today, I want to walk you through the specific rules that create that gap. Not budgeting tricks, not spreadsheet hacks. These are the mental frameworks that separate people who always seem to have money from people who always seem to be running out, regardless of what either group earns. Let's start with a concept that will permanently change the way you look at every purchase you make. Everything you buy has two prices. The first price is the one on the tag. You already know about that one. The second price is invisible. It doesn't show up at checkout, but you pay it every single month for as long as you own the thing. And here's what's shocking. For many purchases, the second price ends up being larger than the first. The second price includes storage. Physical space in your home costs real money, somewhere between $25 and $50 per square foot per year when you factor in rent or mortgage. That exercise bike you bought and now use as a coat rack, it occupies roughly 15 square feet when you account for the space around it. You're paying anywhere from $375 to $750 per year in implicit rent to store a piece of equipment that isn't improving your health or your life. The second price includes maintenance. Things break, things need cleaning, servicing, registration, insurance. There's an old rule in the boating world. Budget roughly 10% of a boat's value every year just to keep it operational, before you factor in fuel, docking, or actually using it. A $25,000 boat quietly costs $2,500 a year whether it leaves the driveway or not. The second price includes mental overhead. Every object you own claims a sliver of your attention. It needs to be cleaned, organized, insured, repaired, and eventually dealt with. Cognitive scientists have found that visual clutter actively increases stress hormones and reduces the brain's capacity to focus. Your possessions are taxing your mental bandwidth around the clock, whether you're aware of it or not. And the second price includes opportunity cost, probably the most expensive price of all. Every dollar tied up in a possession is a dollar that isn't compounding in an investment account. A $12,000 home gym setup sitting mostly unused isn't just $12,000 spent. It's potentially $40,000 to $60,000 that won't be in your retirement account 2 decades from now. You didn't buy exercise equipment. You bought exercise equipment instead of a piece of your financial future. Once you see both price tags, you can't unsee them. And that's exactly the point. Here's a simple formula that destroys impulse purchases more effectively than any willpower exercise ever could. Before you buy something, estimate how many times you'll realistically use it, not how many times you imagine using it in an optimistic mood. Realistically. Then divide the total cost by that number. That's your cost per use, and it's the only honest measure of whether something is worth buying. A $180 jacket you wear twice has a cost per use of $90. A $450 jacket you wear 180 times has a cost per use of $2.50. The more expensive jacket is, by any honest measure, the better deal. Run this calculation on a $350 kitchen appliance you'd realistically use 4 times a year. That's $87.50 per use in the first year alone. An absurd price for any task it performs, no matter how clever the infomercial made it seem. Compare that to a $25 pan you use 4 times a week. Under $1 per use. Dramatic difference. The calculation works in the other direction too. It reveals where spending a lot is actually wise. A high-quality mattress used every single night for a decade costs somewhere around 50 cents per use. That's extraordinary value for something that directly affects your health, your energy, and your cognitive function every day of your life. Spend more on the mattress, skip the gadget. This one mental filter, applied consistently, makes most impulse purchases mathematically embarrassing before you reach the register. Here's an exercise I want you to try this week. Walk through your home slowly and look at each item you own. For each one, ask a single, honest question. If this disappeared tonight, would I spend money to replace it? Not would I miss it in a sentimental way. Not would I feel guilty about not replacing it. Would you actually pull out your wallet and buy another one? For most things, the real answer is no. You wouldn't reorder that bread maker gathering dust since 2021. You wouldn't replace that fondue set that's been in a box since you moved in. You wouldn't rebuy half the clothes in your closet if they were gone tomorrow, and deep down, you know that. These items are what I'd call inertia possessions. They exist in your home not because you chose them, but because getting rid of them requires a decision and keeping them requires nothing, so they stay. And they cost you in space and mental clutter and maintenance without giving you anything real in return. Anything that fails the replacement test has negative value in your life. It's a net drain. Sell what has resale value, donate what someone else could genuinely use, and discard the rest without ceremony. The discomfort of letting go is real but temporary. The clarity that follows it is permanent. This one is quiet wealth destruction. It doesn't feel like a problem because it masquerades as normal life, but over a lifetime, it's one of the most expensive habits a person can have. Here's the pattern. Something in your life works perfectly. A phone that runs every app without a hiccup. A car that starts every morning and gets you where you're going. A laptop that handles everything you throw at it. A couch that's comfortable and structurally sound. Then, a newer version appears. Not better in any way that would change your day-to-day life, just newer. And the itch starts. The camera on the new one is slightly sharper. The new model has slightly better fuel economy. Everyone else is upgrading their kitchen. I've had this couch for a while and I'm just kind of tired of looking at it. So you upgrade, and the cycle resets. The average American upgrades their phone every 2.5 years. Stretched over 30 decades, that habit on a device that was perfectly functional at replacement time cost somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 in unnecessary spending. Apply the same pattern to cars, furniture, appliances, and electronics, and the lifetime total climbs well past $200,000, not to count the compound growth that money could have generated. The solution is a strict, written definition of functional. Something is functional until it genuinely cannot perform its intended purpose. Boredom is not a malfunction. A new version existing is not a malfunction. Your neighbor buying a newer one is not a malfunction. Actual genuine failure to perform is a malfunction. That definition, held firmly, ends the upgrade trap. Willpower is a limited resource. It depletes throughout the day. It fails under stress, exhaustion, and emotion, exactly the conditions under which most impulse purchases happen. Your environment, on the other hand, operates the same way at 11 p.m. on a rough Tuesday as it does on a calm Saturday morning. Smart spenders stop relying on willpower and start engineering friction into the spending process and ease into the saving process. Spending friction means removing stored card numbers from retail websites, deleting shopping apps, unsubscribing from promotional emails, and imposing a mandatory waiting period, at least 24 hours, before any non-essential purchase. Not as a punishment, but as a structural rule that gives desire time to pass before money changes hands. Because desire does pass. The research on this is clear, and the lived experience confirms it. Most purchase urges evaporate within a day if you don't act on them immediately. The 24-hour rule alone eliminates the vast majority of impulse buys, not because you talked yourself out of anything, but because the itch was never real enough to survive a night's sleep. Saving ease means automatic transfers that move money to investment accounts the moment your paycheck lands, keeping your checking balance lean enough that spending feels noticeable, and treating savings contributions the way you treat rent, non-negotiable, not optional, first priority. The person who relies on willpower to save money will eventually have a bad week and blow their budget. The person who has automated their savings never needs willpower at all. The money is gone before the temptation exists. This sounds almost too simple to be a rule, but try it and watch what happens. Pick one category. Clothing is a good starting point, and count every item you own in that category. Write the number down. Most people are genuinely shocked. People who believe they have a modest wardrobe discover 60, 70, 80 pieces of clothing. People who think they have a few kitchen gadgets count 25. People who consider themselves minimalist with shoes find 18 pairs. The count itself creates accountability. Once you know you own 63 shirts, buying another one isn't a casual act anymore. You're not buying a shirt, you're expanding a collection that already exceeds any reasonable need. The absurdity becomes visible, and visible absurdity is much easier to resist. Take this a step further by setting category limits and enforcing a one-in, one-out rule. Adding something new requires removing something existing. This single constraint converts every potential purchase into a trade-off decision rather than a simple addition. It's a fundamentally different mental experience, and it dramatically slows accumulation. Most purchases made in a burst of enthusiasm don't survive contact with routine. The camping gear bought after one inspiring documentary, the photography equipment purchased when someone decided they'd finally get serious about it, the musical instruments gathering dust in garages across every neighborhood, the ski equipment from a trip 4 years ago that everyone swore would become an annual tradition. These aren't failures of character, they're failures of testing. Before committing money to any new interest, hobby, or tool, rent or borrow first. Rent camping equipment for 2 weekends before buying any of it. Borrow a friend's power tools before investing in your own set. Take a kayak out for rent 3 times before purchasing one. Renting accomplishes 2 things simultaneously. First, it tells you whether the enthusiasm is real or temporary. A lot of interest in new activities fades after the initial novelty wears off. Finding this out while renting saves you the cost and the clutter of a full equipment purchase. Second, it teaches you exactly what you need before you spend money figuring it out. First-time buyers almost always buy the wrong thing. Renters show up knowing precisely what to get. The garage full of abandoned hobby equipment is one of the most expensive and common results of skipping this step. No significant purchase arrives alone. Every major possession connects to a web of supporting purchases, ongoing costs, and infrastructure requirements that aren't visible at the time of the initial decision. A pool doesn't just cost what a pool costs. It brings chemical supplies, cleaning equipment, covers, replacement parts, water costs, electricity, liability insurance, and landscaping requirements. A motorcycle brings safety gear, storage, maintenance tools, and often a truck or trailer to actually get it to riding areas. A vacation home brings property taxes, insurance, maintenance, furnishings, and the invisible cost of being obligated to use it enough to justify the expense. Before any major purchase, map the full ecosystem. Ask what you'll need to own, maintain, and operate this thing effectively. Calculate the total. The true cost of a $6,000 purchase is often $9,000 or $11,000 when you account for everything that follows at home. The multiplier also runs in reverse. Eliminating one major possession often collapses an entire category of related expenses. Remove the boat and you simultaneously eliminate storage fees, annual registration, insurance premiums, maintenance costs, and the truck payments you justified partly because you needed something with a tow hitch. The savings cascade outward from a single decision. This is the trap that catches the highest earners hardest because it's invisible until you're already inside it. Without a defined ceiling on lifestyle, income and expenses grow in perfect parallel. Raise your salary and you raise your rent. Earn a bonus and you upgrade your car. Get promoted and suddenly your current wardrobe doesn't feel appropriate for your new title. The lifestyle expands to absorb every income increase, and financial stress stays constant regardless of what the paycheck says. There are households earning $300,000 a year that feel just as financially precarious as households earning $75,000. Not because the math doesn't work, but because the finish line keeps moving. The solution is to define enough before you need to. Write it down. What kind of home is genuinely sufficient for a good life? What vehicle reliably meets your needs? What wardrobe actually serves you? What level of material comfort produces real satisfaction rather than temporary novelty? Fix those definitions and commit to them. Then earn toward that target instead of treating every income increase as an invitation to expand. The person who defines their lifestyle at $58,000 of annual spending and eventually earns $140,000 has an $82,000 annual gap flowing directly into wealth. The person earning the same $140,000 but redefining enough at every raise may be saving almost nothing. The incomes are identical. The outcomes are completely different. Most people measure financial success by what they have, the size of the house, the newness of the car, the brand names visible in their life. But there's a more useful measure. Measure financial success by what you can choose. Can you walk away from a job that's making you miserable without immediate crisis? Can you take an extended leave to care for someone you love? Can you move cities for an opportunity or a relationship? Can you start a business without a guaranteed salary? Can you say no to work that compromises your integrity? These are the questions that reveal actual financial freedom, and they have almost nothing to do with possessions. They depend entirely on the margin between what you earn and what you spend, and on keeping that margin liquid. The person earning $210,000 and spending $205,000 has almost no real choices. Their income is their cage. The person earning $75,000 and spending $42,000 has extraordinary freedom. They can absorb disruptions, take calculated risks, and make decisions based on what they actually want rather than what they can afford. Every purchase is a trade. You're not exchanging money for an object. You're trading future options for present things. Sometimes that trade is worth it. Usually it isn't. The question to ask at every decision point: is this worth reducing my freedom? Here's where most minimalism attempts fall apart. Someone watches a documentary, gets inspired, purges their entire apartment over a weekend, feels incredible, and then slowly, over the next year, drifts back to their original accumulation level. 2 years later, everything is exactly where it started. The purge worked, the system didn't. The issue is that a single large purge treats accumulation as an event rather than a pattern. Possessions don't pile up all at once. They arrive one at a time, in small quantities, steadily, quietly, until suddenly you look around and realize the problem has rebuilt itself. The alternative is cyclical maintenance, small, regular reviews that catch accumulation before it becomes overwhelming. A brief scan of incoming items each week, a single category evaluation each month, a broader assessment of overall trends each quarter. Removing 5 things over a week feels easy. Removing 400 things in a weekend feels like a crisis you'll keep postponing. Regular reviews also build something more valuable than a tidy home. They build pattern recognition. You start to notice which emotional states trigger buying, which types of marketing work specifically on you, which categories tend to silently expand. That awareness enables prevention rather than just periodic cleanup. Here's what actually changes when these rules are applied consistently over time. The gap between income and spending widens, not because income exploded, but because spending stopped tracking income. The money that used to disappear into upgrades, duplicates, inertia purchases, and lifestyle multipliers gets redirected into investments, into savings accounts, into optionality. And something psychological shifts too. When savings are real and growing, the compulsive pull towards spending weakens. Most overconsumption is emotional before it's financial. It's a response to insecurity, to social pressure, to the restless feeling that something is missing. Build actual financial security and the emotional void that spending was temporarily filling starts to close. This creates a cycle that runs in the opposite direction from the one most people are stuck in. Less spending produces more savings. More savings produces security. Security reduces the emotional drive to spend. Less spending further accelerates the savings. Each rotation strengthens the next. The 2 apartments I described at the beginning aren't hypothetical extremes. They're real outcomes of 2 different sets of habits. Habits available to almost anyone, regardless of income level. One person owns their possessions. The other is owned by them. The math, the freedom, and the peace of mind all point in the same direction. The only question is whether you're willing to look honestly at the second price tag on everything you own and everything